Operation Phoenix. It could have all been so perfect. A place in history, was that so much to ask for? Nabokov once said, "Life is but a brief crack of light between two eternities of darkness," and how right he was. The span of a human life is but a fraction of a second in the grand scale of time. It is insignificant to the universe. Since I was a young man, I wanted to be remembered. I wanted my legacy to live hundreds of years after my frail body has rotted to dust. In the past, man has searched in vain for eternal life. The infamous fountain of youth, the philosopher's stone, and all the other elixirs of life. It's the same reason that religion is still so prominent today. No person wishes to accept their own mortality. That was partly the reason I joined Operation Phoenix, when an old colleague of mine at the university introduced me to some classified documents and suggested that I could put my talents towards assisting them. Of course, at first I scoffed at the idea, but eventually I was drawn in. A pity. If I'd only listened to the nagging voice in my head that told me to stay away, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. And by God, if I could, I would. Maybe then I'd stop seeing their faces at night. Maybe I'd be able to sleep. I would like to be able to say that this vile affair took place in the heart of the Soviet Union, or perhaps even the depraved laboratories of the Third Reich. I really would, but in truth, these experiments were performed in the rolling fields of Albion, not far from a small village where I grew up. There's a military base that has long since fallen into disrepair a few miles north of York that officially doesn't exist on any maps, civilian or military. But any who are brave or foolish enough to scale the wire fence and gain access to the dark hallways will find cartridges in the corners of the labyrinthian corridors and scraps of classified papers in heaps of ash in the long since abandoned laboratories. Not much survived the fire, but a savvy and observant interloper might be able to piece together the story of what happened here. The whole place was torched after the incident to remove any traces of the evidence. Blamed on troublesome use of nearby towns for an arson attack that claimed the lives of almost 100 MOD scientists. If you believe that ignorance is bliss, and that some things are best left buried, then I urge you to stop listening and forget about it. But if you value truth as much as I once did, then listen on. Operation Phoenix was a military-funded operation. Looking back, their intentions were all too clear, but I was too naive and blind to the project's real goals, which at first made me uneasy, but Richards assured me it wouldn't be a problem. Shortly after my induction, Commander Huntingley sat me down and explained the project's aims. It seemed the project wasn't quite as far-fetched as I originally thought. Yes, they did seek to find the secrets of immortality, but through surprisingly conventional methods. Rebirth. The Phoenix is a legendary creature that would die, be reborn from the ashes, hence Operation Phoenix. I know, it's a terrible name, but our focus was to unlock the secrets of genetic renewal, not waste time on thinking of a catchy code name. To put it simply, we were creating a serum to affect the host's genetics. See, when a cell dies, it is replaced, but as you get old, the cells stop getting replaced. And the idea was being that if we could unlock the secrets of genetic renewal, the host could live on for much longer than their intended lifespan. Imagine what Einstein or Marx could have accomplished given another, 10 years of life? This project was offering at least triple that. You can see the results of the project in the audio log that I have enclosed, but let me warn you, it's not for the faint-hearted. November 22nd, 1982. The first load of test subjects arrived today, and I can barely wait to begin the first trials of the experiment. Imagine the glory we'd receive if this project succeeds. My name would not just ring throughout Britain, but throughout the entire world. Batch 1 contains 9 males and 3 females, all between the ages of 20 and 29, all fit and healthy. Inmates of a nearby prison who were given a chance to reduce their sentences by becoming lab rats. The prototype serum has been administered to all subjects, and they have been escorted into the holding area. The thought of what this experiment could achieve for mankind sends shivers down my spine. December 2nd, 1982. Thus far, no major changes have been seen in any of the test subjects, bar one. Patient M4 has developed extreme abnormal aggression. This morning, one of the guards caught him savaging F2. The guard attempted to restrain him, but M4 mauled him and escaped. F2 received heavy but treatable wounds to the neck, abdomen, face during the ordeal. A shame. She really was a pretty girl. M4 was eventually brought down whilst trying to scale the electrified perimeter fence. A guard in a nearby watchtower saw him tangled in the razor wire and was forced to terminate him with a bullet to the head. We still don't fully understand why he did it. The patient seemed perfectly cooperative up until this point. Perhaps a side effect of the serum? Perhaps a result of his isolation? Who can say? A further 2 batches arrived today, with no particularly remarkable patients. December 13th, 1982. Sometimes I wonder if they understood the service they were doing to mankind, whether they would act any differently. They're so passive and distant, barely human. Something about them makes me uncomfortable, the way they shuffle around, never looking you in the eyes. It's like they hardly notice the world around them. Sometimes I find myself hating them. Don't they understand what effect the serum that they're helping to create could have on the course of human history? The serum has been altered and we have administered it to batches 2 and 3. Huntingly wants the first batch to remain pure, a control group, to see if others are affected in the same way as patient M4. F2 rejoined the first batch today, but she still shows extreme fatigue and unwillingness to cooperate with the scientists. The 4th and final batch also arrived today, just in time to replace the losses. Many subjects are now showing extreme and abnormal muscle growth. They're practically skeletal frames struggling to support so much flesh. On a sadder note, Dr. Lee hung himself today. His knowledge and expertise will be missed. Every scientist lost is a setback of a week, maybe more. Many others are abandoning the project, calling it inhumane. They really can't see how much good can be done from doing a little evil. The ends shall justify the means. February 9th, 1983. Of the original 4 dozen, near 2/3 are dead. Subjects M17, M20 and F8 showed promise, but like the others, they eventually succumbed to cardiogenic shock. It seems their circulatory systems have failed to cope with the addition of the excess muscle growth. Each loss is an extreme frustration to us all. The remaining dozen or so have been isolated in individual cells to prevent any accidents with other patients. Every day, more and more scientists are abandoning their workstation. Their selfishness nearly caused the project to grind to a halt at one point, but once double shifts were implemented, our work continued at a steady pace. The few dozen scientists left, including Richards and myself, have been working frantically to meet the deadline, but it does seem like our work is almost in vain. We simply don't have the manpower to complete the project. Curiously, the excess muscle growth is heavily laced with proteins from the serum, and to be honest, nobody's sure why. Lab reports suggest it resists being broken down with organic acids. Just another mystery. February 10th, 1983. I saw them today, for the first time in weeks. They've changed so much since last time. They're no longer human, merely beasts of sinuous muscle. Honestly, it made my stomach turn just to be in the same room as them. Their eyes, they follow you as if examining you, but they remain motionless, slumped in a corner. Most are only able to make low, guttural noises, which almost sound melancholy. We're yet to discover why they have lost the use of their vocal cords. Perhaps they're merely unwilling to speak? Richards was showing me the result of our experiments conducted earlier in the week when something completely unexpected happened. The patient lumbered up and banged on the reinforced window with all his might. A crack appeared in the thick glass, and we both froze in fear. But the patient remained motionless in front of the window, not intent on breaking out as we first worried. It seemed to be more of an act of frustration or even anger. He simply stood watching us through his dull, brown eyes. I took a step towards him, and he turned his head to me. For a moment, the room was still. And then something completely ordinary happened. He blinked. It was such a human thing to do. For a moment, I was almost surprised. As of that moment, I stopped seeing Patient 19 as a hunched, hulking monstrosity, and I started to see him as a man again. Patient 19, I'd read his file. Alexander Harper, age 28, divorced, father of 2 young girls. A former teacher only guilty of a minor tax charge. As I stared into that abomination's eyes, I suddenly saw what we had done to these people. We'd taken their humanity and turned them into these animals. All in our vain pursuit for fame and glory. I choked back tears. I left the room, followed by Richards. Why did that bastard have to drag me into this? At that point, all I wanted, more than anything else, was to just stop the project, but nothing mattered now. Nothing could change what we'd done to Alex. February 11th, 1983. We failed. We failed to create anything near what we'd hoped for. Our funding's been cut and the project disbanded. All patients are to be terminated. We refused to abandon our work, and for a short while, we thought maybe they'd listen to our protest, but Huntingley had contacted his superiors. Within the hour, military trucks started arriving outside. They didn't even attempt to negotiate with us, they just shot on sight, soldiers following orders. I heard the stutter of a submachine gun and run around the corner in time to see Cora's white lab coat peppered with bullets as she slumped against the wall and fell to the ground. Richards came hurtling around the corner, his breath ragged, his shirt blackened. "Andrew!" He choked out before he could say anything else. His chest erupted in a fountain of gore as a submachine gunner opened fire. I didn't hesitate. I just turned and ran. Please, I ask you not to judge me. I was so scared they'd get me too. I ran from the slaughter, the screams of my dying friends, my colleagues, and the blood, the unbearable blood. A left turn, a right turn, another left to reach the emergency exit. A pane of reinforced glass shattered behind me in a volley of machine gun fire, sending broken shards scattered across the floor. It was a desperate, undignified scramble for survival, but through sheer dumb luck, I managed to evade them. I burst out the emergency exit and just ran into the darkness. I ran and ran and ran until my legs gave way, and I fell into the ground in a heap on the soft white snow. My head was spinning. I'd just watched the murder of my closest friends, the killings of all my co-workers, the destruction of all my research. But all I could see was Alex's face in the darkness against the winter night. Because of me. God, what have I done? In hindsight, it all fits into place. The military didn't care for science, it didn't care for enhancing our short little lives. It didn't even want to create a breed of super soldier as one might have suspected. It just wanted meat. A cheap, plentiful supply of meat that could be grown quickly and cheaply. Alexander wasn't a patient. He was fucking livestock. Fears over BSE, mad cow disease as you probably remember it, contaminating military stocks prompted investigations into finding a new source of protein for our squaddies. They claim the ends justify the means. Sound familiar? Once upon a time I would have agreed, but those words now leave a bitter taste in my mouth. But in truth, none of this matters anymore. Soon, the final survivor of the Rayleigh base fire will die, and I will have the mercy of being forgotten. I don't want to be remembered for what I did to those poor wretches. I can't bear the guilt anymore, and the only way out is to end it. To whoever finds this, bring it to the public attention. I want people to know the truth about what we did. I want people to know what depraved things we did to those poor souls. And I want to make sure that no one ever follows me down that same dark path. I leave you with a proverb written by those much wiser than I. The road to hell is always paved with good intentions.